the 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Now entering the game for Philly Press Box Radio, Bill Furman and Jim Chet Chesko.
It's Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. Welcome to the Philly Press Box Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA, Cavs, Philly Tailgates, and the STT Sports Network. I'm Bill Furman. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner, Jim Chet Chesko. Chet, the Eagles are hosting an NFL Divisional Finals game against the Rams. Notre Dame and Ohio State will play for the national championship. The Sixers sit in the 11th place in the Eastern Conference as we approach the halfway point of the season. The Phillies have resigned many of their free agents heading into spring training. Next Tuesday, the 21st, the Baseball Hall of Fame announces its class of 2025 to join Dick Allen. Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins are on that ballot. And it's been 40 years since the Philadelphia Stars won the USFL championship. Hard to believe, 40 years. We are loaded up with plenty to talk about in Philly sports. Is that you, AJ?
Oh, sorry, Bill. I was getting a little inspirational reading in while we
little motivation to get going tonight.
Yeah, it's beer snob. Tips for a beer snob. Good stuff. Hey, we all have our things, you know. We do have a full show indeed, Bill. In fact, so full that we're 7 or 8 minutes late getting started because little technical snafus, but, you know, hey, we work with it. We're going to make it work. Football talk, the primary focus tonight, understandably, given the fact that the Eagles are advancing to the divisional playoffs of the NFL. College football champion will be crowned on Monday. It won't be Penn State. We will definitely talk a little baseball, too, along the way with our first guest.
Yep, we have great guests tonight, actually. We're going to talk all things Philly sports with Kevin Cooney. And in the second half, we will talk football, Stars, Eagles, Bergie, and more from former players of both of those Stars and Eagles teams, John Bunting and Ken Dunek.
Now, here's the deal. We had to record both of these interviews earlier, and we just did Kevin Cooney within the last hour, and I was editing it to make it a little tighter. I could not get the thing finalized to play here, the edited version. So this is the unedited version that we just taped with Kevin, and it starts off like this.
And with that, let's welcome Kevin Cooney back to Philly Press Box Radio. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, Bill. Hey, Chad. How are you?
Doing all right, Kevin. Hey, we got a lot to cover with you, and we're going to start with some football, but no, not the Eagles. Here's the deal. Bill's a big Penn State fan. I'm a PSU alum and a Pitt fan. Yeah, I knew that was coming. You're a long
You're laughing once. He's laughing once since 1988.
Go ahead, get it out.
You haven't laughed since 86.
Untrue.
So anyway, what is your take on, first of all, the very entertaining Orange Bowl game that, the Fighting Irish won, and how they're going to do Monday night down in Atlanta?
All right, this is a double whammy. One, I thought the Orange Bowl was terrific theater. I thought both teams played fairly well. Both defenses are terrific. Drew Allard just made a mistake he can't make in throwing over the middle like that, and especially against the Notre Dame defense, which has thrived on turnovers. The fact that Penn State almost, look, it was 2 turnovers to 1. Penn State almost got away with a couple other turnovers. The pass interference calls that set them up actually and took points off the board put points on the board basically for Penn State. I thought was advantageous. As far as Notre Dame's shot, I'm happy that they're there. I think Marcus Freeman has been terrific. I will tell you that I think Notre Dame probably has about a 20% chance on Monday night. The way that Ohio State's playing, if Will Howard plays the way he did in the Cotton Bowl or in the Rose Bowl, if they find the receivers, the one thing Notre Dame can do is they do have defensive backs that can match up, which would create maybe a little bit of a hope But the injuries for Notre Dame is the biggest problem in my mind, especially on the offensive line. That's probably why Ohio State's going to win. But I'm happy with the way the program is going at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned more for Notre Dame in the trenches. I think their Ohio State's strength, I think, probably is Notre Dame's weakness, and that's
defensive line to the offensive line right now because of the injuries. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But I tell you what, I'm not a big Notre Dame fan, never have been. I can't root for Chip Kelly ever.
Wow. And that's the thing. It's like the way college football, you look at a college football season's been changed this year because look, Notre Dame, after losing to Northern Illinois, probably had no right being in the tournament. But they got hot and they played well at the end. And we saw a lot of, and Bill, you know this living down there, we saw a lot of Florida State teams in the past who didn't have a shot to win it, who got hot under Bobby Bowden, who would have benefited from a system like this.
Yes.
Ohio State, that lost to Michigan, would have been an eliminator in a lot of ways. I think Penn State, honestly, and I know that the Oregon game, you can't really punish them for playing in a conference title game, but the Ohio State loss was so bad at home, I'm not sure Penn State would have got a shot in a normal circumstance with a 14 field. So it's good in some way. I wonder what the erosion on the regular season is going to be as we move forward the next year.
And those championship games for sure.
Championship games, I think, will go the way of the dodo at some point. I think they're extinct. They'll just merge. They'll expand the field and they'll merge basically all of them into the tournament, at least in the power 3 at this point.
Right.
All right, let's get on to the Eagles. Big win last Sunday, of course, over the Packers. 12-point win could have been even more impressive had Saquon not been so, gentlemanly on that final run. A lot of criticism, though, of the quarterback still. He threw 2 touchdown passes, didn't throw any picks, had a 111.4 passer rating, but you're hearing still a lot of people critical of Jalen Hurts. What's your take, Kevin?
Well, that's the nature of the position in this town. I think that, if you don't put 40 up, people are going to wonder why. To be honest, I thought the major part of the problem was in their offensive sets was play calling. I thought that Kellen Moore had an awful afternoon. I thought that he didn't really use Saquon enough early. I thought that the lack of slants to both Brown and Smith were inexcusable. That's more than Jalen. And I think he also hurt Jalen because he never really got Jalen in a rhythm. I know he hit the first 6, but after that he missed a couple. And instead of doing slants, easy kind of patterns to your main wide receivers, you were trying to extend things a little more. And I didn't like that. And they could totally do away with the sideline screen pass that they've tried for years here, and it hasn't worked. Look, this game coming up, they're the favorite for a reason. They're the better team. I think the Rams won that game last week because 2 reasons. One, they took advantage of the blitz that Brian Flores threw at them a ton, and Vic Fangio is not going to blitz a ton in this game. That's one. And 2, I think they took advantage of a lot of emotion. I think that, Minnesota was down after losing to Detroit. They didn't look. We saw that last year in that 4-5 game when the Eagles ended up having to go to Tampa. It's very difficult for that team who just misses a home game and everything to go on the road against a good opponent. And that's what happened. And you add in the fact that the Rams now, after all the emotion they had, after going home for a couple of days, now trying to fly back east, the weather's supposed to be a factor. It's going to be cold. Matt Stafford's never been great throwing the ball under wet conditions when he was in Detroit and playing in the NFC North. I think you're going to see more of an Eagles route this week, a more symbolic performance than what we saw out of this group last week.
Kevin, I'm with you on Kellen Moore 100% in this game. And a couple things came to my mind as I watched the game. Is one, was this the game plan to be this super conservative? 2, the Kellen Moore stink the place up. 3, without seeing the all 22 film to see if Hurts actually missed receivers or whatever. Or 4, is Jalen Hurts just not good enough? And I follow that up with the fact that I tried to get this graphic on the screen, but due to my technical incompetence, it didn't get up there. But they had 6 third down plays. 3rd and 5, they ran a draw. 3rd and 10, they ran the screen against the blitz.
They did
3rd and
surrenders.
12, right? 3rd and 12, they ran. 3rd and 13, they scrambled. 3rd and 10, they ran. 3rd and 13, they ran. Something was out of sorts there.
Well, I think there's 2 things at play. One, they knew that was a game that the only way they could really lose was turning the ball over. And they played it conservative, and they were very conservative. And against Detroit, you can't be that conservative. Right. Against Kansas City or Baltimore or Buffalo, whoever you may face in New Orleans, if you get there, you can't be that conservative. But against the Packers, you could. And I think against the Rams this week, you can. Because I think there's going to be mainly a running game this coming week. I don't think anybody who had questions about Jalen Hurts last week, you're not going to get any more answers this week because the game plan is going to be, well, here's the way to keep those aggressive defensive linemen from the Rams kind of in a mush rush, and it's by just feeding Saquon and Kenny Gainwell the ball time and time again. And if that's the case, then the Eagles are probably going to do what they did to them in L.A., which was overwhelm them in the second half.
The Eagles are reasonably healthy. I mean, A.J. Brown a bit banged up. Nakobe Dean, though, out for the postseason now. How big a loss is that?
It's bigger the further down the road you get. Look at the teams remaining. Look, Tyler Higbee could exploit that a little bit as tight ends. As the tight end probably would be a factor in this game a little more than it was last week. And the Packers had no healthy bodies left. That was the other part of this, too. It was body bag game 2 by the time they got to the end. I would say the Dean absence will be felt when they get to Detroit. If Montgomery, when Montgomery and Gibbs coming out of the backfield, they have a good tight end as well. Obviously, the kid from Iowa. That's where they're going to miss Dean because Oren Burks and Jeremiah Trotter, there's a reason they're backups. Not bad backups, but there's a reason they're backups. And Trott especially, I know it's a great story. He's a local kid. I love watching him at prep and all that. The problem with Trott is just his size. And I think in a big game situation, teams could exploit that.
What'd you think of the defensive back situation the other day? I thought it was interesting. Of course, Slay went out, banged up, did come back. They actually worked on Mitchell a little bit, which we haven't seen until this week. Have the opponents found maybe a little weakness in him that they think they can exploit?
Bill, actually, if you think of it, if you go back to the final 3 games of the regular season when he played, they started to pick on him a little more. And I think part of that was they were not willing to throw over to Slay's side because it's a veteran. I think part of that is veteran knowledge, and that Darius Slay hasn't shown that big a drop-off. So it's a little sign of healthy respect. So you tried a rookie out. Part 2 is the fact that he hasn't played this long a season. And I think that part of it is the idea that maybe they just figure you can catch a little bit of a fatigue factor. And look, against Washington, he was beat. He was beat in the game against Dallas, if you remember as well. It's growing pains. It's to be expected. This week, I would assume he'll be up against Nakua, and they'll probably have Cup on a Slay on Cup at this point with the Gene helping out over the top.
Kevin, last one from me on the Eagles front. You put Notre Dame's chances of winning Monday night at, I think you said 22%. What are the Eagles' chances of beating Detroit out there if it comes to that?
50-50.
Really?
Because the one thing the Eagles style travels. It's defense and it's running the football. You're not going to be intimidated by what's going on. I don't think you're going to be intimidated by a crowd yelling. I'll be honest, Chet, I don't rule out Washington going into Detroit and winning. Washington right now has that they have that kiss of destiny kind of thing going. And so I think they're going to keep it a little closer than everybody believes. I think Detroit will probably end up winning. But to me, I don't think it's a slam dunk that Detroit gets out of this. Because, look, all the injuries they've had, and I know they're getting some guys back. We talked about the rust factor last week. If they fall behind Jaden Daniels, that could be a problem.
One final football question for me. I'm really looking forward to Baltimore at Buffalo. Slugfest, I think. Who you like in this game?
Can I say Kansas City?
Well, they're going to win.
Well, no, and I know, and I mean this, that I think both of those teams will beat the hell out of each other, and it's going to compromise whoever advances.
That's true.
For the following week.
Yeah.
I think we've hit that point where you just, and ignore my stepdaughter going and talking.
She's more than welcome to join us.
Kitchen, yeah. No, I would say that right now. I like Buffalo. Lamar's not a great cold weather quarterback, and the weather on Sunday is supposed to be downright Arctic.
Yep.
But I think the toll that what takes place in that game is going to just be too much on the winner to go to Kansas City and then win in Arrowhead the following Sunday.
Kevin, let's talk a little baseball. We're less than a month of catchers and pitchers reporting down in Clearwater. The Phillies didn't do a whole lot over the offseason. They added outfielder Max Kepler, a starting pitcher, Jesus Luzardo, and a reliever, Jordan Romano. Is there more to come? What should we expect from the Phillies this year?
I think they're going to probably save whatever assets they have for a trade deadline move. And that involves giving Alec Boehm a shot to kind of reclaim himself this year. Luzardo's a big pickup. I actually like the Luzardo pickup. Yeah. And it also opens them up if it prevents them from having to sweat out the Taiwan Walker thing like they did last year. It does kind of open the door, too, for Ranger Suarez to get moved. If not in spring training, then maybe at the trade deadline or whatever, if they feel like that they could survive without him, and they're going to lose him in free agency next year. And obviously with him going to Boris, it's probably a pretty good indication that they're going to lose him. I think they're fine. I know because they didn't make the splashy move, and I know, I think their bullpen is a little bit of a concern. I think that's the area that, Jordan Romano is somebody who has had closing experience, but the problem is he's coming off of a major injury, and you're trying to get a reclamation project, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I think they are probably the best team in the division. The Mets still have pitching issues. The Braves, I got to see what Acuna and Strider are before I can kind of put them back on top. But they're behind the Dodgers, and there's little doubt about that. But the problem is, guys, get to October, and we've learned this the last 3 years. Get to October, and it's a crapshoot. I know the Dodgers won, and I know the Yankees won. They were the big markets and everything. But it's a crapshoot on the way how everything falls. If the Brewers hold on in the ninth inning in Game 3 in Milwaukee, the Phillies are probably in the World Series last year because I think they match up well against the Dodgers.
Hey, Kevin, before we run out of time, we have to talk about your Hall of Fame ballot. Yeah. You've been a voter for a long time. Pretty solid this year. I can't even argue with you much like I did last year.
You're one of the rare people that didn't argue. Look, Suzuki, I know, is going to be unanimous. CC should be in. I think Billy Wagner, and I've been a long-time Billy Wagner advocate because his numbers in the regular season, I know everybody goes, oh, my God, his postseason is just awful. And no, his numbers in the regular season are all-time great. Yeah. And he really didn't pitch for teams that had great postseason shots anyway. If you go back to the Houston years and, his 1 year with the Mets, or his 2 years with the Mets, rather. The Rollins-Utley one is the one around here I get asked the most. Mm-hmm. And I voted for both. I think Jimmy's numbers, if you compare them to Barry Larkin, are pretty favorable, and Larkin's in the Hall of Fame, so I'm going to go and give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. Chase is not a traditional numbers guy, but the analytics, I view Chase in the same way, Bill, that I view Don Mattingly, that he was so dominant in his position for 5 years. Now, did it translate to 10, which is normally the Hall of Fame standard? No, but he was the best. He was among the top 5 players in his sport for 5 straight years, and injury kind of sidelined him. And so is it a little hometown bias because I saw Utley every day? Yeah, maybe. But I know there's a case to be made for Chase to at least hang on the ballot, and that's kind of where I went with him. Jimmy, to me, it's an outrage that he's not higher. Jimmy is an MVP. Jimmy was the leader of a team that won a World Series and won 5 divisions. Jimmy had Gold Gloves. Jimmy was a superior defender to Utley, by the way.
Yeah.
To me, it's a sin that Jimmy's case has not been taken up by more of the people, and I'm trying to figure out why. Maybe because his attitude to some people was a little too smug. And look, as much as I hate to say it, my colleagues sometimes vote on who they like and who they don't like. And I think that's part of it with Jimmy.
Kevin, we're just about out of time. And boy, what a shame we didn't get to talk about this Sixers lineup that I got to watch in person last night.
Well, no, that's okay. I was okay without talking about that. However, I will say this has been a really bad week for that organization because they burned a lot of bridges in Center City. They did. A lot of people in city council, and including Mayor Parker, got left to twist in the wind. And it's not going to hurt them now. They're going to get their arena and everything. It may hurt them down the road. And it is, guys, I think it's set up the fact that this ownership group is going to sell fairly quick.
They keep putting that crap on the court. It's going to start hurting them real soon.
Well, and that's the thing. They're the biggest benefactor of the Eagles right now. And they better hope it goes to February 9th or whatever it is in New Orleans. Because after that, then they're bullseye, and including the head coach, who's not done a great job this year. And I know he's had injuries, and I know the Embiid thing's not his fault. And Daryl Morey's been a ghost and not really talked to anybody. At some point, the bullseye turns to them, and it's not going to be fun.
I'm with you.
Kevin, we are out of time. Thank you for doing this. We'll catch you on 97.5 this weekend, I'm sure.
Friday night and Sunday morning.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Fantastic. Chad, it's always fun talking to Kevin. He's obviously very knowledgeable. He's got good opinions on things, and he's really good.
Yeah, and I catch him on 97.5 frequently on the weekends when he's on. He does a real good job there. He certainly knows his stuff, covers all the bases. And I agree with most of his takes on the Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I'd like to argue with him about his Hall of Fame ballot. And this year, I didn't have a whole lot of beef with what he's got going on there.
Yep.
All right, Chad. Hey, did you know, you better by now, Philly Press Box Radio is now part of the STT Sports Network, as in Set the Trends. It's a network set up by our pal Phil Stiefel, host of the terrific Trending in the AM show that you can find every weekday morning on the STT Sports Network YouTube channel. Check out Phil and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Phil's show is on there, and so is ours. Yep, you can find Philly Press Box Radio there, in addition to our own YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. Again, it's the STT Sports Network, setting the trends for what sports talk should be. Chet, what is going on over at the Irish Rover Station House these days?
Well, Bill, the new year's off to a great start at the Irish Rover in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. You know the drill. Always 24 beers on tap, served up by the Rover's terrific bartenders. Thursday through Sunday dinner specials. Thursdays also mean killer burgers. And after 7 p.m., Stella and Wings specials. Oh, speaking of wings, check this out. During all NFL playoff games, you can get a dozen wings for $9 and a bucket of Mick Ultra bottles, 5 for $15. And there's music Saturday nights this weekend, courtesy of, get this, DJ PJ. The Irish Rover Station House is on Bellevue Avenue in Langhorne and on the web at irishroverstationhouse.com. And right now, Bill, a little musical interlude for you.
Bill, there's a 10th anniversary I heard about.
Really?
Bill and Chet from Philly Press Box Radio. It's the 10th anniversary, and let me tell you, I could not be more proud. How about you? Are you proud?
I am. Congratulations to both of you guys, Bill and Chet.
Do you remember what you were doing 10 years ago?
I don't.
He doesn't. See, that's
10
a long
years
time.
ago. Congratulations, guys.
That wasn't Ray Diddy or Merle this week.
No, I tossed in that little Fat Mez piece, some of their cover of Deep Purple's Highway Star, because the guys are releasing several new original singles in the weeks and months ahead. And Thursday night, they're doing a second headline show, mostly original songs, at this event at Ardmore Music Hall. That is Thursday night. So kudos to my guys in Fat Mez as they keep climbing up the rock and roll ladder.
Good for them.
Yep.
All right. Hey, Chet, speaking of climbing the ladder, the Eagles advanced to the final 8 with a win over the Packers Sunday. The Rams are up next. What are you thinking?
Well, the win over the Packers wasn't a Rembrandt, as they say. The offense wasn't overly impressive. We talked with Kevin about Jalen Hurts being okay, but not overly impressive. Good enough to win. Still, they did win by 12 points. Could have been 19, as I said, had Barkley not taken the slide at the end. Credit the Eagles defense for another masterful performance on Sunday. I think they might need that again this Sunday, too, because we saw the Rams the other night, what they did to the Vikings. Their offense looks great. Matthew Stafford, a veteran who's, pretty darn good. I think they're clearly a better team now, the Rams, than they were back in November when the Eagles smoked them. So we'll see.
Here's the takeaway for this game. Write it down.
Okay.
The Eagles better do a better job of handling the blitz, whether it's getting the ball out quicker, getting the hot receivers. They didn't do a great job of blocking it. And when you're holding the ball back there, when you're not doing a great job of blocking 7 with 5 or 6, it spells trouble. Better have a plan.
Yeah, the Rams D had 9 sacks of Sam Darnold the other night?
Yeah. Well, and the good side to that is Jalen Hurts did do the checkoff on the blitz that he hit Dallas Goedert with that little tiny pass that turned into the game-winning touchdown, basically, but Goddard made the play, but it was Hurts making the read. That's the kind of stuff they got to have a lot of.
Yeah, and I love those stiff arms by Goddard, not once but twice on that defender.
Oh, he even waited for him so he could give him a third one, too.
Yeah, that was great. I love that.
Hey, speaking of football, you had a chance to visit with former Eagles and Philadelphia Stars John Bunting and Ken Duneck to talk about those Stars that won the USFL championship 40 years ago, Chet. That team will be honored tomorrow night at the Philly Sports Writers Banquet, which you will be attending.
I will be there. Great chat with those guys who you could tell from this chat, they remain great friends all these years later, and they do have fond memories of those back-to-back USFL titles. Well, this is going to be fun. I get to talk football with two guys who played with both the Philadelphia Eagles and the Philadelphia and Baltimore Stars, the two-time USFL champion Stars. Let's say hello to John Bunting.
Great to be with you, Chet.
And Ken Duneck. Hey, guys.
Hey, I am here and excited as well. Thank you.
Well, we're going to talk lots of football with you both, including the Eagles' outlook here in the postseason. But we're going to start with a discussion about the old USFL Stars, as that great mid-1980s franchise, the two-time league champions, as I said, will be honored Thursday evening at the Philadelphia Sports Writers Association's annual banquet. John, I'm going to ask you first. In the Stars' 3 seasons of existence, 83 to 85, the team was 48-13-1, including the postseason. How good were those teams?
All we did was win all the time. It was a pleasure with that group. And, of course, I refer to the useful league. That was great for me because yours truly, after the 82 strike, was released about 2 weeks after that season ended. And fortunately for me, Carl Peterson was the president of the Stars and recognized that I still had a little bit of gas left and thought I could contribute to a young football team, which we were. And it was so much fun. It was the most fun I ever had playing pro football.
Well, Ken, you were a backup tight end on the Eagles' 1980 NFC title team. How'd you end up with the Stars in 83?
So I had just been released from the New York Giants in 82, and I was trying to figure out my next move, and I was teaching tennis at the Cherry Hill Racket Club, and Carl Peterson brings his daughter in to give her tennis lessons, and he says to me, where are you signing? I said, I'm not sure yet. He goes, do you want to play in the USFL with the Stars? I said, how much you paying? He goes, the same as you made with the Eagles. I said, sign me up. Let's do it. So I joined them in the fall of 82, and our first camp was February, I believe, of 83. And then people like John and I and Scott Fitzke, who had played with the Eagles and in the NFL for a bit, and John obviously had an illustrious career in the NFL. We were really appreciative of the chance to continue to play in the game that we loved, and we took it very seriously. And then Carl Peterson mixed in all these great rookies like Kelvin Bryant and Bart Oates and Sean Landetta, and they just bought into Irv Eatman, and they just bought into how important it was for us, and we created this dynasty, and it was really a pleasure to be a part of that team.
Look at these young guys. Hey, John, do you still have that USFL card somewhere?
I still get sent cards, and I send them out. I sign them, and hey, that's I'm pretty relaxed there on the sideline.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, John, look at the size of those pads. Look at the size of those shoulder pads. Are you kidding me?
Different in today's world, that's for sure.
Did either of you guys ever read a book on the sidelines like we caught A.J. Brown doing last Sunday?
A playbook maybe, but not a novel.
That's about it.
Hey, let me ask you about your coach. I'm talking, of course, about Jim Mora. That's him now on the left, celebrating that 1984 title. He was something of a legend who, had a long coaching career in the NFL, the great Jim Mora. He's now 89 years young, by the way. Any particular memories of Coach Mora? John, you go first.
I think Jim Mora is a great coach. He's not a spitting image of Dick Vermeil, but he's got a lot of similarities. Lots of discipline. Hard work was the word that we all used in that locker room. And he hired a great staff. Vince Tobin was our defensive coordinator, a tremendous football coach, God rest his soul. Really loved that defense that we played. Very different from what I played with the Philadelphia Eagles with Marion Campbell. With the Stars, we just had a lot of defense, a lot of things that we would do coverage-wise, blitz-wise, front-wise. We were always tooling and retooling.
And John, don't forget that Vic Fangio was on that Star staff as well, who's had an incredible run here and doing so well with the Eagles. I concur. The coaching staff was excellent. You had guys like Jim Erkenbeck, who had been around pro football for years, and Carl Tater Smith, who went on to coach a lot in the NFL. Joe Marciano was my tight ends coach and special teams coach, and he coached special teams in the NFL for years. And of course, let's not poo-poo John's coaching resume, which is pretty good. Followed Jim to the Saints, and then for Coach Vermeil with the Rams and Chiefs, and he was right up there. And he was actually took a coaching position in 1985. And I remember, John, I don't know if you remember this day, but you had decided to retire and you were coaching. And I came in the locker room day and you had your pads on. I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He goes, "Well, they're short players. They need me on scout team." I said, "Are you out of your mind?"
Another reason why I enjoyed that team so much. I got to go back out there and play a little bit, or at least practice a little bit. At one point, they were saying that because of the injuries to the linebackers, that I might be suiting up. But I actually went through a week's practice, and then Jim Mora pulled me into his office on a Friday or a Saturday. He goes, "Hey, you're not playing. Mr. Tannenbaum, he doesn't want you to play. He's afraid you're going to get hurt."
Oh, gosh. How about that?
Hey, Ken, you mentioned Vic Fangio, and there he is way back in 1984. So, John, let me ask you, what was Vic Fangio like as a 25, 26-year-old defensive assistant?
Of course, I got to coach with him in 85.
Yep.
But he is a very smart guy. Of course, he coached at North Carolina, came to the Stars. He had a lot going for him. And once again, I think he tutored under Vince Tobin and gained an awful lot. Vince Tobin did a lot of things. And I think that's what makes Vic so special, is he's not afraid to do a lot of things. Pressure, zone pressure, man pressure, different fronts. As a matter of fact, I brought Vic down to UNC to tutor my defensive staff and show them how the zone pressures work. And he stayed at my house for 3 days. Really good guy, really smart guy.
Wow. Hey, if I remember, Ken, you guys in 1984 were getting 30,000 fans for some games. I think you had 37,000 at the home finale that year. That's pretty good for a team in its second year of existence.
You know, the crime of it is that we were forced to move to Baltimore in '85 after winning the '84 USFL championship. And you're right, we averaged, I think, a little shy of 29,000 per game. Had we come back and were able to play at the Vet in Philly in '85, I'm sure that would have been 40 or 50,000. And we have been off to the races. Of course, everybody's familiar with the politics of how that all went down. And it was a shame. And it cost a lot of people their jobs and the ability to continue to play pro football. After the league folded, I had just signed a fairly big deal with the Stars, and then the league folded. The Steelers came at me with, I was making half the money that I was going to be making with the Stars, and at that point, I just decided to retire. But yeah, the league was fantastic with great players, Hall of Fame players. Anybody that says that the Stars could not have competed in the NFL, and John, maybe you can jump in on this, I think is being silly, because every significant player on the Stars, I believe, had NFL experience either before or after the league folded. Would you agree, John?
Many of those players went on and played a long time in the NFL, and particularly the brothers on the offensive line, Bart Oates and his brother Brad.
Yeah.
And once again, we had a great offensive line and a killer running back in Kelvin Bryant, and we had a quarterback named Chuck Fusina, who had played in the NFL some, but he was a winner. He had a great attitude, and he could throw all the throws, but basically he didn't make any mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get to Chuck in just a minute, but another one of the stars on the Stars, of course, was one of your fellow linebackers, and that would be Sam Mills. And we know Sam Mills' story. We lost him a few years ago, but he did go in posthumously to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. John, speak a little bit about Sam Mills.
Sam Mills is the only one that ever beat me to the film room. He was a student of the game. You know, he had been released 2 or 3 different times in the NFL. And I remember Jim Mora telling the story that when he first brought him into camp, he said, I don't know if this guy's going to make it. He's too small. Yeah. And he got out there on the field and he showed what he can do. He was also my warm-up partner in pregame, and he used to jolt my helmet backwards. He'd almost hurt me during pregame. He is so strong and he is so stout, and he had the timing of a linebacker to deliver that forearm blow, smart as a whip. Called our signals. He just was a tackling machine, and also a terrific person, a really, really good guy.
And the quarterback, you mentioned Chuck Fusina. Ken, I believe Chuck will be at the PSWA banquet on Thursday. What do you remember about the Stars quarterback those 3 seasons, who happened to be the league's player of the year in 1984?
Well, like John said, really smart, a great leader, a positive attitude. He had enough arm strength to do all the throws. I know he was knocked a little bit for a perceived lack of arm strength. I didn't see it. I mean, he could throw it deep. He could throw it with touch. But his main thing was very smart and a great leader. And when you got in the huddle with Chuck Fusina on offense, you were confident when it was time to win the game that he was going to get it done somehow. And John and Chuck have remained 2 of my closest friends for 40 plus years. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that I got to play with these 2 guys, and what a great team we had.
I actually had a class at Penn State with Chuck back in 77 or 78 when we were both out there. And I got to see him again when he went into the Pennsylvania Hall of Fame back in 2016. So I'm looking forward to seeing Chuck once again. Hey, John, take us back to July of 1984. What do you remember about beating the Arizona Wranglers down in Tampa and the celebration in Philly that followed a few days later?
It's my 34th birthday. July 15, 1984. I get to celebrate on the field, off the field, and I don't think I went to bed that night. And we boarded the plane, and we were just a joyous group. We got to fly home and then have the parade down on Broad Street. There was a ton of people there.
Oh, yeah.
We were truly celebrated in the great town of Philadelphia. And once again, I believe I'm right when I say this, Ken. Did we not, after that game, fly over to London and play?
Well, yeah, here's the deal. We win the championship. Obviously, we're in heavy party mode. We get home, we got the parade, we're still partying. And then a couple days later, we got to get on a plane and do an exhibition game in London. So, the players are still hungover on the plane as we're flying over there. We got the wives and everything. We get to London and we think we're going to celebrate and have a good time. And Moore goes, practice is at 2:00. We got to get our pads on and go to practice in Hyde Park. You remember he wasn't, Jim Moore was so serious about football. We just won the championship, but it didn't matter. He was going to put a good product on the field. And that's what we did.
Well, guys, after that 84 championship season, as you discussed, the franchise moved to Baltimore, sort of. You never actually played in Baltimore. You practiced all week in Philly, played games in College Park. That must have been crazy.
That was crazy. We practiced in Philly, and then we would get in our cars and drive down to Baltimore someplace, Maryland, where the University of Maryland played their games, and that's where we played our games. We had so many crazy guys on our team, the Tommy Donovans and that and the other. We're passing each other and making signs and hanging out the windows, and we just had a great time together. It was a very great personality team.
John, I think I remember you mooning me on one of the trips. I don't want to tell tales out of school, but Chet, here's the thing about that team. As John said, we played and practiced. We practiced in Philadelphia, played in College Park. It was actually easier for us to go on the road because it was a 2.5 to 3 hour drive down to College Park. The airport was only 20 minutes away. We could dump our car and just jump on the plane. So it was one of the most unique experiences. I think what that team overcame. As you recall, John, we got off to a really slow start. I think we had to win 5 or 6 of our remaining games, 5 of the last 6 remaining games just to get into the playoffs. But we always knew if we could get into the playoffs somehow, we still had that championship DNA, and we proved it. And we won. We beat the Generals. We beat Birmingham, who had a very good team on the road. And then we had a rematch with Oakland, which was the old Michigan Panthers, Bobby Hebert and Anthony Parker. And they were a great team, and we beat them. I think it's one of the best accomplishments in pro sports, given all the circumstances.
I'm glad to see that you guys will be celebrated Thursday night at the Sports Writers Association banquet. It's going to be a lot of fun. Ken, looking forward to seeing you there. John, we'll send you pictures after the fact. But I'm
really going to miss it. There's a bunch of guys there that I would love to see, but I have I've had a serious ailment with myself, and I went to Bill Bergey's funeral a couple of weeks ago, and it set me back a little bit. God bless Bill. A lot of people were there. It was terrific too, just to honor that man.
And that's exactly what I was going to lead into. In 2023, Frank LeMaster passed, and then a mere 3 weeks ago, Christmas morning, in fact, the Eagles did lose one of their all-time greats. Your old teammate and fellow linebacker, Bill Bergey. John, talk a little more about the great Bill Bergey.
One of the greatest athletes that I've ever been around. 6'3", 245, 250 pounds, and runs a 4.6, 540. He was truly a bear out on the field. I mean, he could really bounce around. What a physical player, tremendous speed and quickness. He had like 27 interceptions. I mean, he just had a knack for knowing what was going on. And he was a pleasure to play with because he was always upbeat. When we'd have one of those 3-hour Friday Dick Vermeil practices, and he'd call us up when we're all kind of just mad as hell. Let us get home, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, Bill Bergey would go, hey, let's have some fun, guys. Let's do it. That high-pitched voice of his would, come on. He enjoyed playing the game. He really did.
John, I remember being in Otho's training room and watching Bill get his knee drained before every game, and people don't realize, and you suffered a similar type of a knee injury, but his knee was the size of a small watermelon, and they would take a bunch of fluid out of there, and he would somehow tape it up and get ready to play. Certainly one of the toughest individuals I've ever been around. And, we were able to, myself, Harold Carmichael, Reggie Wilkes, and John Spagnuolo went to go say goodbye to him a couple months ago when we saw this heading in the wrong direction. And that toughness remained. He said to me, he says, Kenny, I'm not afraid to die. He goes, I just want to make it to Christmas for my family. He died on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So he was an amazing person. Really honored to have been his teammate.
No doubt. No
All
doubt.
right, our final 2 minutes, guys. Eagles, Rams Sunday. Ken, you first. What do you make of this Eagles season? Is Jalen Hurts good enough at quarterback to get this done with the defense that we have? What are you thinking?
I like the Eagles. I think they're deep at every position. I thought I was a little bit worried about Jalen coming off of a 2.5-week layoff with no live action. I don't even know what these guys are allowed to do in the concussion protocol, whether they can work out by themselves. So the fact that he showed a little bit of rust really didn't surprise me. But hey, listen, guys, the Eagles are deep. They've got a great offensive line, good skill position players, good defensive line. The rookies in the defensive backfield can let us play man or zone now. So it would not surprise me at all to see the Eagles make a nice Super Bowl run here. I do believe they're going to beat the Rams this Sunday.
John?
The running back has been very, very special too. And they've been able to overcome injuries at receivers during the season. My only fear is Matthew Stafford. That guy can fire the ball.
He's good.
It will be interesting to see what Vic Fangio's defensive scheme will be. I'm sure he's not going to revolutionize what he does, but he plays a lot of coverages, and it will be interesting to see how Stafford matches up with the Eagles defense.
Can't wait. Hey, Ken, I know we talked about this about 5 years ago, but back in 2018 when I was out in Canton for the Hall of Fame induction of Brian Dawkins, I spotted this at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How cool was that, having your jersey at the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
It's really cool, but it's one of the great injustices. How do you think Jim Kelly feels about sharing that cubicle with me? People. I'd like to get a picture of his face when he first saw that. But hey, here's my explanation of that story. We did a Stars reunion a few years ago. I had the trophy. Carl Peterson asked me to send it to Canton. The guy calls me and he goes, "Throw your game jersey in there. We need some for the display." The next thing I know, my jersey's hanging in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It is undeserved, but it's there, and I'm proud of it, and I'm not going to take it back.
Yeah, who's that Kelly guy? That is awesome. Well, guys, this was loads of fun. Congrats again in advance on being honored by the Philly Sports Writers Association Thursday at the DoubleTree by Hilton. That's in Cherry Hill. I believe there are still some tickets available. Ken, I will see you there. John, as I said, I'll send you pictures after the fact. Wish you could be there. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be with you guys. Take care, everybody.
Chet, that was really, really good.
Yeah,
really,
wasn't that
really
fun?
good. Yeah.
As I told you after I talked to them, I could have talked for 2 hours with those guys because I know they have a lot more stories. We could have talked more Eagles, but wow, you could see the love they have for each other too.
Yeah, you know how much I like talking to the old players.
Oh yeah,
there's just so much good stuff, and you could see it. And quite frankly, when you started talking about Bill Berge, it looked like another tear was going to come to John Bunning's eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
He did a pretty good impression of Berge. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, hey, speaking of good stuff, what's going on with the best tailgaters in Philadelphia? Bob Cavanaugh and the gang at Cavs Philly Tailgates.
Cavs Philly Tailgates has been cooking up a terrific catering business for some 35 years now. You know them for their tailgate parties. Cavs is a 3-time winner of Philly Tailgates, Jack Daniels Great American Tailgate Party Contest, and a past winner of the Philly Daily News Tailgate Award. Cavs also does corporate events and parties, you name it. You know, of course, that Cav hosts tailgates before all of the Birds games at the link, and that'll be the case this Sunday ahead of the Eagles-Rams divisional round playoff game. You know, that's going to be lots of fun. Oh, Philly Tailgates will, as usual, be working with Philly Sports Trips again in the spring for a pair of 5 or 6 day Philly spring training trips. There's the one pictured right there, March 11th through the 15th. WMMR's Preston and Steve crew part of that one. And then there's a second trip, March 16th to the 21st, with special guests Larry Boa, Jason Worth, and Charlie Manuel. Wow. All the info at phillysportstrips.com on those Philly trips, and check Cavs Catering's website, phillytailgates.com, for pricing and info about Sunday's Eagles tailgate. Cavs Philly Tailgates is the way to go.
Absolutely. Hey, Chet, let's get to our weekly picks. How did we do last week on Wild Card Weekend?
Very interesting results. You, Boop, and I all correctly picked the Ravens, Bills, and Eagles to win. But only you, Bill, correctly picked the Texans. Boop was the only one to pick the Rams to knock off he was the only one to pick the Commanders. I was the only one to pick the Rams to knock off the Vikings. So after all the smoke cleared, we all finished 4-2 for the weekend. So there's your standings.
How about that? All right, so we have 5 games left because we're including the national championship this week. So
okay,
we're going to start out. You have Boop's information. Boop, Bob Patron
do.
Jr. is not with us tonight, of course, but we have his pick. So we're going to start out with Saturday's Houston at Kansas City, the Chiefs -7.5. A lot of crazy point spreads, I'm thinking, for this week, Jet.
You know, I haven't looked at what Boop wrote, so let's see it right now. Texans at Chiefs. Boop says Andy Reid's teams are 29-3 all time, coming off a bye when the opponent is not. His pick, obviously, the Chiefs. Boop loves the Chiefs, and you got to pick him here. Kansas City wins this one.
Yeah, Kansas City's going to win, but I'll tell you what, Houston's going to play. That Houston defense last week was really good.
Yeah.
All right, so Washington at Detroit, the Lions -10 when I put this together last night.
I think the Commanders may cover. Let's see what Boop says. Jaden Daniels will be going to a Super Bowl some year, just not this year. His pick is the Lions. I'm picking Detroit as well, but if I had to make a pick, I would say that Washington will cover that 10-point spread.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Washington's for real.
Yeah.
All right, Sunday we have Baltimore at Buffalo, the Ravens -1 on the road.
Boop says turnovers will be huge. These teams combined for just 19. There were 22 teams that lost at least that many all by themselves. All right, so Boop picks the Bills. I got to be honest, Bill, I went back and forth on this one numerous times. And yesterday I settled on Baltimore, but today, in the last hour, after listening to Kevin, and I checked the forecast, 19 degrees the high, and then going to the single digits after midnight, and they're playing, late afternoon or early evening. So I'm taking Buffalo. No,
I'm taking Baltimore.
I started at Baltimore, went to Buffalo. You're taking Baltimore?
Yeah, I'm taking Baltimore.
Okay, there's our one.
Somehow they have to figure out how to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and that running game last week was just sick. So one way about cold weather is run the football. So
yep,
I'm going Baltimore. All right, let's jump ahead. Let's jump ahead to Ohio State, Notre Dame, Monday night. Ohio State's an 8-point favorite. Who you got?
I don't know if they're going to cover. I can't see Notre Dame winning. They may or may not cover the spread. I think it's 8.5 when I checked today. I'm taking Ohio State to win. Boop, though, I texted him today when I found out you wanted that pick. He said Notre Dame, a long time in the making. So he is taking the Fighting Irish to win outright.
Wow. It pains me to pick either one of these teams, but my lesser of the evil, I'm not picking Chip Kelly to win anything, but they're going to win this game.
Well, he's not the head coach, at least.
Yeah, I can't stand him. But Larry Johnson is still the defensive line coach and assistant head coach of that team. And Larry is a friend of mine from back in the day, and always root for Coach Johnson. He does a great job with that defensive line, as always. All right, back to the Eagles. Rams coming to town. Eagles -6.5. What you got?
Boop says, to win a title, you have to win a clunker. The Birds have gotten their clunker out of the way. I guess he likes this one to be a better game for the Eagles. He picks the Eagles to win. I do too. If I had to pick a score, I'm going to say 27-20. So right around the spread, but I do think the Eagles will win and cover.
Yeah, I do too. I think the Eagles win. I think the one thing that's interesting here, Chet, is it's easy to take the 4 favorites. But there's always an upset. Somewhere along the line, somebody's going to lose that's not supposed to lose. It just better not be the Birds.
Yeah.
All right.
By the way, folks, so we started our show 8 minutes late due to some technical issues. We're going to end the show 8 minutes after 8 p.m. Eastern time here.
Which means we're right on schedule, right?
Hang in there.
Hey, we had great guests tonight at Kevin Cooney, John Bunting, Ken Duneck. Who's coming to Philly Press Box Radio next week?
Well, tough to top it, but we're going to give it a shot. We have 2 great guests next week, Bill. Both of them are repeat visitors. We will talk Philly sports and get a preview of his brand new book, Magic in the Air. Believe it or not, this guy hasn't been with us for 2.5 years. You know him from his work as an award-winning sports columnist at The Inquirer and his Saturday show on WIP, the great Mike Sealski back with us. We have a second author on the show as well. We met him back in 2023 and talked about his previous book at that time. This one is about Johnstown, PA basketball. It is author Bradley Hebner. And hopefully we will also, Bill, be previewing an Eagles NFL championship game as well.
That's right. All right, Chet, I'm going to leave this one just with you. Okay, yeah. I'm going to let you finish the sentence. I went to the Sixers game last night. ...
And I survived it, even though there was no Joel Embiid, no Tyrese Maxey, no Paul George. I was a little ticked off when I found out late in the day that neither Maxey nor George would be playing. They had been listed as questionable earlier in the day. I said, oh, come on, they can't both be out, can they? And from what I understand, I didn't watch the shoot-around, but they both participated in the shoot-around. And the one security guy I was talking to said, they looked fine to him, and yet we get the decision they're not going to play. So, yeah, this is the lineup that I saw last night. Kelly Oubre, Ricky Council IV, Gershon Yabusele, Eric Gordon, who's like 107 years old, and Reggie Jackson. And it ain't Mr. October, and he's not Mr. January either. Yikes. What a crew that was. Oubre, by the way, shot 2 for 10, and I think he was a minus 27 from what I understand. The Eagles lost by, 16 or something? It was horrible, Bill. Did not enjoy it. My first game.
So let me ask you. I don't know what was the crowd. I guess first of all, was there anybody there?
It was very near a sellout because people bought the tickets in advance. OKC is the best team in the West, real good team. They got SGA, the great dude who was a runner-up for MVP last year. They have a very good team. They're fun to watch. And when people bought their tickets, most of them either last year or last summer, they assumed they'd be seeing Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George. No, you got none of that.
So what's the reaction? What's the reaction of the fans? I mean,
it was kind of a lackluster crowd. Nobody overly excited, obviously, because of the guys missing in action. Even the backup center, Andre Drummond, not there. Kyle Lowry, not there. People were pretty well behaved and just kind of calm until midway through the first quarter, the Sixers started to fall behind more, and it was 32-12. That was the biggest deficit with, I think, 2:12 left in the first quarter, and that's when there was a timeout called and the boos began. And I had said to my buddy Chris that went to the game with me, I said, I bet there are boos before the end of the first quarter. And sure enough, at 2:12, when they were down by 20, the boos came out loud and clear. The good news, Sixers did hang in there and, they got to within 5 points, I think, late in the third quarter, but that's as close as they got.
Well, I know you got your tickets for a good cause. It was a donation to CHOP, so maybe not so bad for you. If I spent my hard-earned money to go see that slop, I would be wanting somebody's head.
Could you imagine paying $100 or more a ticket plus, for parking and everything, and then you find out the last minute that you already knew Embiid wasn't there, and then the other two big guys weren't going to be there either? Very frustrating. But I did enjoy the $12 slice of pizza that I had, Bill. It was a very big one.
Did it go with the $18 beer? Did you get it all for $30?
My buddy bought a beer for me, so that was nice. It was a $15 Yingling lager.
There you go, $27 for a beer and a slice of pizza and bad basketball.
What a deal. And then you see the slop on the court.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Anything else before we wrap it up tonight?
We don't have to talk about the Sixers arena mess, but as Kevin said, the whole thing is just a mess. I think the Sixers may be in process 2.0 mode right now, Bill. So it could be another rough few years.
I don't think the fans are buying any 2.0s. That's not going to happen. I don't know the answer to this thing, but there's big trouble for that organization.
Yeah, I don't know if Nick Nurse is going to survive the year. Maybe, as Kevin said, they will end up selling the franchise because nobody is happy right now, Bill. Nobody.
Yeah, and I don't know. Kevin wasn't happy with Nick Nurse. I don't know how much you can blame him. I mean, you only have to put in what you can put in, He don't make the decisions on who's playing each night.
And watch Nick Nurse on his post-game news conferences. I think I kind of alluded to this last week. He's aging by the week after having to put up with what's going on.
Absolutely. All right, let's wrap this thing up. You got anything else?
Nah, let's get out of here.
All right, let's thank tonight's special guests, Kevin Cooney, John Bunting, and Ken Duneck, our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Cavs Philly Tailgates, and PPCC 118 Raz Room. For Jim Chechesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll join Philly Press Box Radio next Wednesday, January 22nd at 7 p.m. You see us live on Facebook, on our Philly Press Box Radio YouTube channel, and on the STT Sports Network YouTube channel, as well as listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and all the others. High hopes, Philadelphia sports fans, and go Birds.
Let's do the song. Come on.